On the outskirts, the edge of being there. I'm giving out, I'm blending out. Radioactive, sociopathic, oleo tactics to keep us down, to keep us down. Critical
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commonwealth podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Clarity, and my co-host, Ina. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello.
So, jumping right on in, how are you, Ina?
I'm actually doing really good today.
Yeah?
Yeah, the new moon is here, and yeah, I like new moon energy.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good. New moon energy.
So I've gotten a lot of shit done this last week. What about you?
I just had a birthday. Happy birthday to me. Leo season. Shout out to y'all. And I've just been enjoying the week. Like, enjoying the festivities of what birthdays come to pass.
You had like 4 days of festivities.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to take the whole rest of the month and some of September. It's going down.
Yes, I
going
love
down.
it. I love it when I hear that.
Yes.
I think that's awesome.
All the celebrations.
What was give me like 2 of your favorite events over the weekend?
Ooh.
Birthday-wise.
Neon miniature golfing. Drunk neon miniature golfing.
Drunk neon miniature golfing, folks.
Really great.
Fabulous, fabulous.
And let's see, hitting the club in the middle of the night. Went to Blue Martini at 11:34 p.m. so that I could bring in my birthday there. So that was really nice.
Oh, cool.
And it was for Neo Soul Night, so I liked
nice.
it. I liked it. I gotta start going there a little more often. It was nice.
What is that called again?
Blue Martini.
I don't think I've been there.
It's off of it's an Enterprise in Town Square.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
That
We
sounds
should go.
awesome. We should go. That would be super fun. I'd like to go out. I haven't gone out in a minute because I've been working through a bunch of different things.
Well, then
Creatively and otherwise.
we should definitely go out then.
I was like feeling real bored too. I was like, oh my God. Like, need adult time.
Valid.
But anyway.
But yes. So that's a great little recap. So today, let's just dive into some more dating topics.
Yeah, we're definitely, today is definitely going to be a dating show because we got wind last time that the only thing that was really exciting was kind of like the end of our conversation to most people. And so yeah, that's the short of it. And then
It is the short.
Hi to those that are
Hey, y'all.
on the chat. How you doing? Cool. So I'm going to have you lead and then I'll just answer.
Sure.
And do follow-up questions. All right.
Sure. So diving into today's episode, we're going to talk about what we like and what they do. They as in partners, and particularly today we were talking about men in general.
I'm not always talking about men.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's why I specified that we will be talking about men.
But we might be,
however,
right. I can definitely, some questions will be biologically male specific. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to be just male. We
Right.
are just diving into what we like versus what they do, and whomever they are will be discussed.
Yes.
That is our topic of today's episode.
Yep.
Is there anything that you want to start with that is something that you like that just is understood to be taboo or not seen unless it's behind closed doors?
Yeah, so my entire existence is pretty much a practice of doing sort of covert social considerations in public.
Explain. Dive into that a little bit for us.
Like, that's like the most generic way I could say it without like getting into the nitty gritty of things. But like, yeah, I was just thinking about this recently, actually. Like, you know, most of my enjoyment, like the things that I gravitate towards and things that I find enjoyable, are already on some level of, subculture, like closeted subculture. So,
Excuse me.
so yeah. What's interesting with that premise of how I usually live my life but in the dating spectrum, is that I come across a lot of folks that are like, have different levels of repression, right, internally. It doesn't mean that they have to, like, I'm not looking for everybody, like, not everybody that I meet has to like the same shit that I do. That's
Right.
not how I get down, but I'm just saying, like, what I do notice the most in dating is like the varying degrees of repression that people are holding. Like how they repress themselves, how they ingest that they have to repress themselves or their desires because of whatever social conformity exists or conditioning or what and where and however they've accumulated those things, because those things are variable. But there is a lot of like socially almost mandated in some areas, right? Conditioning around like not being able to fully recognize your desires, not being able to talk about them, not being able to even acknowledge them, or having to do like a crab walk when you're trying to get to them, and people aren't very direct, so they don't learn how to be direct communicators overall. And then even less so, I think, in dating, because there's so many connotations and desire, and then also there's usually like some level of exercise they've already done in terms of what they expect or what they think it's supposed to look like, or what is good and what is bad. So yeah, for me, it's like I am really looking for folks who can at least, the very like bare minimum of dating is at least have a real conversation. If we're getting into it, let's like have a real conversation, like be present enough to just kind of own wherever you are in that space. So
I was definitely going to
like
ask.
a premise.
Yeah, I was definitely going to ask, how do you combat that moving towards?
I don't really combat anything. Like I'm not like in lucha with people. Like I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna struggle with folks. Like I think we were kind of touching on last week. I think it was maybe off camera, but we were kind of touching on like I recently had an experience dating someone who did not recognize that they were like a gay ace, right? Like they're much more on the ace spectrum, but they were still sort of playing around with trying to like contort themselves into these other sort of, cultural constructs of what dating and a relationship should be, right?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because I was really just trying to hold space for this individual to just recognize who they really were. There was no force, I wasn't combating, I was just kind of being there and just sort of trying to open that sort of portal of existence for the individual. Just being honest, like I'm a queer person and this is how I this is what I do about dating, and like, I have applications out for like a whole pleasure team, which means multiple people because I'm not a monogamist. So like really just sort of laying some foundations down around like there's a lot of other things that you can do so that you can, and also that not all relationships have to have a sexual base or a sexual result.
True.
Right? And so, so that would be like an example of that, right? Like I just kind of come into a situation and I just kind of see what exists, and then I think also because I'm a little older and I am not looking for anything that's like a cookie cutter style relationship. I have like the sort of ability to have all of these different types of relationships, and like again, I don't have to have a result. I'm not looking for a sexual result. I'm not looking for, like, it doesn't have to appear as any sort of one thing or end as one thing. Or I think it's also like I don't have this expectation that like someone's going to be my one and only and give me everything that I need. Like that's just impossible. I find it impossible.
Yes.
So that's not what I'm looking for in dating. I'm just looking for other human beings that we have a connection and we can hang out and we'll see where it goes. So I'm a lot more open about experiences and adventure. Like, to me, dating is an adventure.
I agree with that. Dating is an adventure. It's a learning experience. It's a
Yeah, I definitely-
foundation of what you want, what you're trying out, who you are in dating.
Yeah. And it really should be like the learning ground, right? So, Gabby didn't like that comment, I guess. I don't know. We were just talking about that too, the dating as a learning experience. And that's that was one of our unpopular opinions, is that I think a lot of folks have expectations going into dating that they don't necessarily make known, number one, and that they really hold fast to, like they really kind of almost, I think it can be kind of limiting. Like, we have a lot of self-limiting behaviors as human beings. I was just talking to one of my homies, like, who's also a colleague and a client and like a business coach, like, and we have like a multifaceted relationship. But one of the things I was saying, I was like, yeah, you know, when we're invested in our own sort of like self-limiting beliefs and our own repression, that is a form of psychological masochism. And she was just like, I was like, yeah, masochism. Like, if you were playing around with some DS relationships, like sometimes we have our own like little DS relationships internally, right? Where like we have some dominant archetypes, we've got some sub archetypes, and like sometimes, you know, we psychologically or emotionally, we do things to ourselves that are very masochistic. And so for me, I always look at where am I limiting myself, and where my levels of repression are as my own form of psychological masochism. And so that helps me to sort of identify it a little bit better, and also not to judge it, because I don't judge masochists or sadists when it comes to, like, again, we're kind of, this is in the parameter of dating. Right? Yeah. So like, so already off top, we're going into the subculture of BDSM, because that's kind of how I look at certain things. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting, that was also something that came out of the relationship with the ace, was because when I was confronted with someone else's repression, my immediate sort of recognition also was, okay, well, this person was brought into my life. So as a reflection, like if this person's a mirror and I'm a mirror, where are the things that I need to learn about my own repression from this situation?
So do you think that as you continue to grow and learn yourself, do you think that there is an expansion of the term dating to each person? Because, like, is there like a definitive, this is what dating is? Or do you think it expands over time as you continue to grow in dating?
I'm not a linear thinker.
Yeah.
So I'm a spectrum sort of gal, right? And like if you think of like a light spectrum, right?
It's all over. It has so many different
like
levels.
Speckled,
yeah.
Right? And it can like reach in multiple directions and all have its own sparkle.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I think about most things. Like, so everything to me becomes a spectrum. Dating is a spectrum. Okay. Right? And
I can see that.
I think the thing that is most important is to understand where you sit on that spectrum. Right? Like, and that's to say also that some folks really have a very like agendaed, notarized, list-based, you know,
very
response
true.
when it comes to dating. Like, they're like, I want to get married. You have to be filial. You've got to be a woman. You've got to be a man. You've got to be this. You got to hit all my fucking, you know, P's and Q's and dot all the I's and shit. And if you can't do that, then I can't move forward with you. And that's fine. You know, to each is, like, for me, I'm like, that's cool. Like, you're not eligible to date me, but that's cool.
It's cool that you
right? Like, and that's
did it.
Like, yeah, because the whole thing about, like, we kind of touched on this. There's a difference between getting attention and people actually being eligible to date you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I went out this weekend and
got a lot of attention.
Wanted the attention.
Right?
It was my birthday. I wanted the attention. I looked damn good, right?
I'm sure of it.
I enjoyed every second of the attention. I let, you know, those who I I could see and hear because I don't typically date elder than maybe 6 years. And so like those who are like, don't get me wrong, in today's society I could, not even today's society, by number standards there's a possibility that I could be somebody's grandma, but but like in actuality there are people who are AARP certified and I don't want to date them. But I appreciate your advice, Pop Pop. Shout out to Pop Pop. I appreciate your staring. I appreciate your drinks. I love the intention. But am I dating you? Do I feel like you're eligible to even take on the dating sector?
Are you eligible for putting in an application?
No. No, application denied. But I appreciate your desire to want to be here. I don't date any younger than maybe 2.5. Younger. And I'm like, oh, you're 25. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh,
I definitely have. I have caps on age also. Yeah.
I'm just not that youthful. I don't want to be in the club. I barely wanted to be in the club for my birthday, but I enjoyed it. It was a nice little vibe. But I don't want to be at the club with you.
Which kind of, and that brings up our preferences, right?
Yes.
So your preference is that there's definitely an age range that you prefer
absolutely
to stay within.
Yes, absolutely.
Give me another preference. What's another preference?
I prefer to not date people with kids. No shade on people who have kids.
No, that's legit.
No, anything.
I also prefer not to date people without kids because y'all don't fucking know shit.
See, but that's a valid statement, and that's how I feel about it. I don't know shit about this.
I mean shit, meaning like you typically there's a disconnect between
very much.
How much those of us that do have children, how we kind of operate.
Very much.
Right, and then sometimes there's a lack of there's a gap of understanding. Not a lack, it's a gap of understanding.
Correct.
And I think some folks can handle that and other folks can't.
And I'm one of the folks that cannot.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I've
totally
done my due diligence. I'm not her for that.
I prefer somebody who was just straight out be like, kids are a deal breaker, than someone who's like, oh, maybe I can try, but they don't really tell you that. They don't really tell you. Like, so what I'm really saying is, I have dated people who it is kind of a deal breaker, but they refuse to say it just because they wanted to see where we would go. And I knew it off top.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of saying, like, sometimes it's better to just be honest and clear, because there's those of us out here, like myself, who, like, you might not be saying some shit, and I already know some shit. Like, I can already feel it in the way that you get down, the way that you respond, the energy that you're throwing off when I'm having conversations about certain things. And also, I will say that there are some of us who are more experienced with life that will throw out things just to test your fucking energy about it. Like your initial reaction to shit.
And that's fair. Yeah. That's a fair assessment. However, I think that also has a lot to do with the learning experience of dating, right? Because I don't know if I don't date people with kids until I've dated somebody with kids and I've had that experience. Or if I just know that about myself. Because I love kids. I taught preschool. I have plenty of nieces and nephews. I love kids. But I know what I like as far as my attention level. I know what the experiences that I've had with people who have kids has been. I know that what my dynamic is like for my friendships that have had kids and those changes that have occurred. Like, I can look at that through life lenses and have still tried it out. Like, maybe I never know, you know.
Right.
But I would have had to experience that. It's not necessarily a deal breaker,
but it's definitely a preference.
It's extremely a preference. It's now a deal breaker. I'll say that. Okay. It hasn't been in the past. I would explore it and see. But you've had enough
experiences to know it's a deal breaker.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I just like clarity.
Yeah.
Honestly. I fucking love clarity. Just be clear with me.
Yes.
I'm cool with that.
I mean, I can still love your kids from a distance and my dogs. Love them. But we can't be this and that. We gotta.
It's a lot of work.
I believe it, but I can send them home. I appreciate
I know,
being
but the
able
other
to
person can't.
Right. I appreciate being able to go
Unless they're a
my
co-parent.
way.
Right. They might, and some people have co-parenting where they actually get a week off, a month, or 2 weeks off, or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever their situation is. And then, others are just, there is no time off.
And even then, like sometimes it's like like not to sound the type of way, but sometimes I don't like to share, for one. And then two, sometimes I have a great desire to be a mother one day. And I know that I'm not this kid's mother, but now I want to spend time with your kid. And sometimes that's not okay, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Now I'm like, I just want to hang out with your kid because I love your kid. Oh my gosh. And now it's like, hey, chill. So I don't have a big balance for that.
So speaking of preferences, my house is off limits.
Interesting.
My house and my kids off limits. Period.
Interesting.
You're dating me. And we don't even know you're doing that well. So
Is there a time? That's a valid statement.
I'm like, so yeah.
So it's just
my household, where I live, all that shit.
Is there a time that you kind of open that door
No,
at all?
not usually.
Oh,
There hasn't been yet.
yeah.
No.
Huh.
I really don't. Even people that I collaborate with, even friends of mine, network friends of mine, colleagues and stuff like that, they don't necessarily have that they don't have that access. So my preference really is, I have more than preferences, I have a sort of status of access that I
Strict
allow
boundary.
people based on their behavior and what they bring. Like what they bring to conversation, what they bring energetically, and those things do not really move. Like very, very rarely do they move.
Have you always been like that, or was that something that was learned?
Access wise,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty private. Like I'm super fucking private.
Huh.
Very, very private. Yes,
Interesting.
especially about my kids.
I believe it.
Absolutely. These are their own human beings. They have their own narratives. They're growing their own narrative. They're learning how to live life as a human being, and I'm very fucking private about that shit.
I love that.
So I don't really like to, yeah. So my household is off limits. So it's one of the things in dating that I tell people off top, because also their reaction to my house being off limits will tell me immediately if we're a good fit or not.
Yeah.
Because some people are like, what you mean? Da, 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 da. And I'd be like, no.
It's a high level of
Fuck on.
protection. It's not happening.
Like, no. Like, we're not even going to have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Because you're already trying to, like, make me contort and not respecting what I'm saying. No, I don't have time for that.
Do you ever have, I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but do you ever have like a hard time with the hard no? When it comes to these sets of boundaries, or like introducing someone to your space and then they are attacking your set of boundaries. Do you ever have a hard time with the hard no?
I
do you
don't
give
have
them
a hard time
chance?
with it because I also will just push back. Like, I have a very easy time pushing back. Like, I'll just hang up. If I'm on the phone with you and you're trying to like push me to contort, I will give you a warning. If you don't hear the warning, I'm
it.
done. I don't have, because I'm like, what do I need this for?
That's fair.
Like, I have
Like,
cultivated a life where I really have a level of enjoyment that is pervasive for the majority of my day. So to me, again, with access, it's like, I'm not going to allow somebody access if you're already sort of like conflicted because I live my life a certain way. Nah, boo. I've already been there, done that shit. I've already done the condition game. I've done the contortion, the fucking code switching. Listen, okay? I've done it all. I'm motherfucking tired. I don't want to deal with that in dating per se.
And I get that.
And
I
you're
think
going to
that
get it
comes with
anyway. That's what I'm
experience.
saying. Like, as many of these things as I have that I'm stable with, when you're in dating, you kind of don't know until you know.
Right.
Yeah, you still listen. I speaking of this is a good segue into our icks from dates from 2023. I went on a date earlier this year, and the individual asked me what my cultural background is, and this is also something that I don't usually give up access on, right? Because people people are weird. People are weird. So, and it's also not the basis of my personality, right? Because I'm multifaceted, like, you know. So anyway, I decided to disclose it mostly to see what the reaction was going to be. And then as soon as I disclosed it, this person went on like a 10-minute monologue about why they didn't like the other males that identify with this particular cultural heritage. A 10-minute monologue, boo. 10 minutes. I'm sitting there over dinner, just listening to this person just go off, basically. Yeah. And I was just like, bottle of soju. Which I then proceeded to drink and not even offered him any. Okay?
Whole bottle. Bring it here.
Because I was like, this is just for me. Like, I didn't even ask for another fucking shot.
Yeah.
When I asked the lady.
Oh,
I was like, bottle of soju, one. It was very specific, one
shot glass.
Just one shot glass.
I'm not even
entertaining that. So, yeah.
I don't know where or why people get off like that. Like, you know that you're talking to the person who identifies as, and you decide to read me some type of opinion of yours that makes sense to you.
So for me, I mean, I don't get into why people do things per se, because I don't care, honestly, because that's their thoughts too. Like, I don't really care. But what I will tell you is, in terms of like what I was feeling in the moment, my initial reaction was, oh, I see. This person is one of those folks that their level of want and opinion and their worldview is the most important thing to them. They're not interested or curious about who I am as a human being. And so for me, that's a deal breaker. I don't want to date people who are not curious or interested in other human beings. If you are only interested in your own sort of self-preservation and how you view society, etc., I'm not really interested in having a conversation with you because you're not good at conversation. You really just want to talk about yourself.
That's valid.
And I think talking about yourself is totally valid. Like, we're doing that now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have some interests that I'm sharing and you've got your own perspective that you're sharing, but I'm actually curious about you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to know more about you and how you operate within the human experience. Right? Yes. That's why we're sitting down having a podcast show.
Absolutely.
But I find in dating a lot of times that people sometimes they really date because they want to fit somebody like a doll into their library of living. And I'm like, I'm not your fucking doll, boo. I will break shit. I might break you.
I don't fit here. Damn it.
So, like,
new puzzle.
You do not want me in your library if you're trying to bring me in as a doll, baby.
Oh my gosh.
I do not always play nice.
And I appreciate the feeling of just the complete understanding that I don't want to talk to someone who is so overwhelmed with themselves. I've had a similar dating experience, but my response wasn't that. My response was, in particular, it was pertaining to, I have a lot of allergies, and the conversation came up about voting on healthcare, and I was like, of course I vote on healthcare because I have a lot of allergies.
Yeah.
And they just gave me this whole spiel about why it didn't matter and how nobody cares about that kind of stuff.
Here's my other thing, right?
And then started calling me names.
If you ask me a question only to say your side of the story,
yes,
that's a huge red flag for me. Because again, you're not asking because you're curious. You're asking to respond. You're really just asking as a means to have the conversation get back to you. So I just wanted to point that out while you were,
But then proceeded to like nickname me names like Bubble Girl or Allergista or like it's just stupid stuff. And I'm like, did we really just go from like a regular conversation to being bullied?
What did you do in that moment? Were you stunned?
I was very stunned.
I'm feeling stunned right now, so that's why I'm asking.
And so, yes, I was very stunned. But also, for me, it took me to a really poor place. Like, I'm like, I've been dealing with this for years. I'm feeling like I'm bullied. This is like elementary for me. And now I'm just kind of sitting here like, whoa.
Did you get up and leave?
I didn't immediately. I finished the date, and I got up and walked to my car and I was like,
you, by the way.
Thank you. I felt that though, but I was just like, okay, now that I know. And then he proceeded to send me these long, elaborate, beautiful text messages in the morning.
Lord.
And I was like, hey, like, I'm not feeling this. Like, I just want you to know that we don't need to have this conversation. We could be distant friends. We can't even be friends. I wouldn't call you a friend. I can respect you in public. He was like, because that's about all you've gotten from me. That's such a term. Gosh.
I'm sorry. Is that even the words that you used to say that?
That's exactly what I used.
The energy behind what you really were saying.
I can't give you
We're
more
not
than
even
that.
acquaintances, but if I see you, I won't cuss at you.
Yes.
But please keep your fucking shit over there.
Yes.
But you said it was so,
I will respect you in public.
so daintily. Oh my god, that was gorgeous.
That's about all I can give you, but no. And then I hate when you tell somebody something like, I'm putting up a boundary here, and they're like, well, I didn't even like you anyway. Like,
Yeah, okay.
okay, all right.
But that's my point too. So if you didn't like me anyway, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Why are you texting me? Why are you bothering me? If you don't like me, then why are you bothering me?
Right. And why are you
Because that's
bothered
also
about what I
disrespect.
said?
That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
So you're playing too. That's all I'm saying. Which actually kind of brings me to the point of, I love it when. Okay. Wait.
Get cozy.
Let's talk about like dating app shit. Like
Ooh.
dating app shit. So you get the dating app shit and people are like, oh, you're only talking, how long have you been on this app? How many people are you talking to? I'm only talking to you. Bitch, please. First and foremost, there is no level of exclusivity
At all.
when you are approaching somebody. You're supposed to be approaching somebody to figure out whether or not you're gonna like put some game time in. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, so the immediate expectation of exclusivity is always a red flag. Like that's always a no. Also, you can be thirsty, but please don't send dick pics. That's just right off top is too much. Although I will say the most recent one I got was considerable. I only entertained another 2 minutes of conversation because my brain was like, God damn, like really? Is that real? Like I was still, I was literally just like 2 more minutes before I blocked, I was still just having the conversation with myself internally, like, I wonder if that's Photoshop, is that actually this person's, like, is this out here on some porn website? I double checked because I was fucking curious.
I just need to know.
Because my brain is weird. And then I was like, block.
Oh my gosh.
Please. But yeah, that's the only reason they even got an extra 2 minutes of conversation. Or access to my attention, right? Because that we were talking about access earlier. It's like access to my attention is also equally in consideration, as well as all these other little facets of access.
Do you feel like it's a red flag when somebody immediately either sends you their phone number or asks for your phone number?
I'm old school, so I'm a Gen Xer. So no.
Oh.
Yeah. So again, one of the reasons that Jasmine and I wanted to talk about dating was because we have our own age gap here sitting on this couch. And dating as a Gen Xer is very different than dating as a millennial or Gen Z or what have you, right? So as an Xer, we're used to phones. We're used to conversation. Mm-hmm. Texting can only go so far. And so there's that element that persists. So if I have enough of a connection with somebody, I'm kind of okay if they send me their phone number.
But prior to connection, like I like your picture. Hey, I'm not on this app like this. Call me, text me, beat me if you want to reach me.
Yeah. So my response to that is typically like, hey, so respect to your process. Yeah. Here's my process. why don't we find a window of compatibility in the middle?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I usually operate with something like that.
I
give them, okay, thanks for sharing your standard. Here's my standard when dealing with, dating apps. And I'd like to have a little bit more conversation before I, whatever. Because the other thing is that you do have scammers out here.
Yes.
And so you have people who are just like trying to chop it up about the next fucking Bitcoin thing or trying to get you in some MLM, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Sort of situation, right? And it's like, yeah. So you just have to know that it exists. So I just throw my standards out. Because I'm also an access point for me is if you can honor my standards and respect my standards, then you respect me.
Okay, that's valid.
Because my standards are part of who I am.
Yes.
And so, and I like standards because, standards adjust and standards, there's some negotiation sometimes you can have around how to connect while still honoring somebody's standards. Whereas rules for me are like meant to be broken, so I don't have a lot of rules.
Talk more about that.
I stick more with standards and levels of access because it makes more sense for me. Rules are very linear for me, and I'll break a rule in a heartbeat. I'm mischievous as fuck. Give me a rule, I want to break it.
Rules are meant to be broken.
Right? You give me a rule, I'm going to be like, the fuck? Like, whose authority do you think you are? Or you have in my life? Fuck you and your rules. Because internally, even if I have rules or limitations around something, even in my own head, even if it's just for my own personal processes, I have the same reaction.
Oh,
I'll be like, wait, I'm gonna set a rule for myself? Fuck that rule. I don't even want to do that anymore. I'm gonna go over here and do this. That's why I said I am somebody who operates off a spectrum, because rules and linear thinking for me I just boop 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 boop. I just cannot. Like all the fire signs in my motherfucking astrology just want to burn it down.
No respect.
Want to be free.
No. Forget the rules. Fuck the rules. Over. Okay.
So yeah, that's
okay. To know that about yourself. I mean, I feel like I'm still learning myself. I'm like, interesting. And like even in advancing this conversation, I'm like, wow. I wonder what it's gonna be like when I get to this level of thinking. Like,
it's expansive. It's fucking fun.
Yes.
Yeah, like I have a lot of fun.
Or if you get there, like,
yeah, I really do have a lot of fun of it. Now, I will say that part of the basis of having this sort of mindfulness around all of these little intricate things is I do spend a lot of time learning who I am first. So talking about dating, I date myself first.
oh, absolutely.
First and foremost. Every day I date myself. I take myself out. I do things for myself that I like. Like, I date myself. And I date all parts of myself. Right? So, like, I commune with all of these different versions of who I am and the places that things I like, things I don't like, whatever. Yeah. I pretty much date myself in all states.
I just started this dating yourself journey maybe about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much about myself.
It's the most fun, really.
It really is. And then you start to realize, like, I've had this conniption of, like, trying to figure out how much of myself, the way that I treat myself, that I require to be brought to relationships. And that shift is just starting to happen in the past year or so. And I think that's interesting.
That's a really important shift.
Yes, it is. But it's really interesting because even like down to like childhood, I would always think of the people who treat me with the highest respect will always treat me with the highest respect no matter who I'm dating. And that's true to an extent because that's no longer their role once you're dating someone. And I had a hard time understanding that until like, I don't know, a couple years ago. It was like, So the same respect that you provide yourself, the same respect that everybody else provides you, whether they're friends, whether they're family members, they treat you with this utmost respect. You can't allow somebody to give you the bare minimum and be like complaining when they don't have the resources or the capacity to give you what you never even requested. Like, I just wanted to fill this little gap.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Like, because that you need somebody to meet you where you're at. You really do. And like I said, I'm just starting to learn that maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. I'm like, they should come with that same type of respect. There may be a piece of me that may be lacking in some form or fashion, or something that I want that's lacking in some form or fashion. They don't only have to meet that need. I need that person to meet a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Especially if being monogamous, I need you to meet me where I'm at. Because if I take myself out, I need you to take me out. I don't need to be like, I took myself out, now I just need you to cuddle. Like, no.
Yeah, and I don't think dating yourself is not like, and again, you know, it's like kind of like your first polyamory experience in a lot of ways, because you're dating yourself, and then you could also simultaneously be dating other people.
Very
and
true.
So, I think the only true monogamous relationship that you need to have is with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Because you will give yourself more than anybody else can. And I think there's also a level of you learn what you need in terms of relationships versus what you need as a human person having a human, or as the human experience. I think those two things are very different things. Those are the kinds of things I talk about it a lot. So I had like a 5-year period of celibacy, and I use celibacy probably not the way other people do, but I decided to have my just really, closed relationships, closed sexuality, sensuality, all of those things were just very, very internal, right? I wasn't sharing those things with the external world, mm-hmm. right? And that really afforded me a time to really consider all of these things.
Yeah.
And to look at it with a different lens, because I was transforming out of, other social contortions I had already made. And I chose those social contortions. I own that, right? But those social contortions were no longer, social contortions and relationships were no longer serving the better part of me and where I was really where I wanted to go. It wasn't getting me to the phase of life or the feeling of life that I really wanted to have. And so I started to really consider all of these little minuscule things around relationships and what I was doing and why I was doing them. And, why am I saying yes when I'm not comfortable? Or why am I where am I showing up to this event if I really didn't fucking want to be there? Why am I staying at an event if I really was done with being there? All of these little things.
Yeah.
So that I could really own my own decisions.
Yeah.
Because I'm a firm believer that confidence comes because you continue to do the things that you align yourself with. Meaning, if I tell myself I'm going to work out today and then I don't work out, I have a little bit of a nick in my confidence. It might not be a big nick, it's still a little bit of a nick. So once those little nicks accumulate, then you start really feeling shitty. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, I just try to continue to do the things that I know I like to do, that I want to do.
Yeah.
And just take those little things. And that's why I have this nice foundation of confidence now in the dating world. So it's things don't really shake me.
Yeah.
Right? When people want to go back into their repression or they're not comfortable anymore being around me because I'm out here doing all these flamboyant things in their opinion, or maybe their perspective, or maybe they just, didn't like me as much as they thought they did. Okay, cool. I wish you the best. Walk away with blessings. I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm also cool because I have a very confident relationship with myself, a very confident relationship with my children, a very confident relationship in my friendships, and some of the other applicants that are on my radar at the moment, right? Like, again, I'm able to be confident in those situations because I'm personally very secure in who I am.
Yeah. I think that journey is necessary for everyone, even if it doesn't take as long or whatever the place is. But I think that that's a really necessary journey.
It's also, it's a lifelong, you know how people talk about lifelong learners?
Yeah.
You've got to be a lifelong learner of yourself.
I agree with that. Thank you for sharing this part of your journey. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like it's really important. Like it's also really kind of fun. Like I really enjoy, like just the other day I was walking around my house and I'm thinking about some shit and then I got some instinct download about something and I was like, oh, look at you, bitch. Shit. All right.
I see you. Yes.
Oh, like that's fucking interesting.
Yes.
I hadn't ever thought of that shit before. I've never felt that shit before. I didn't make those, realizations before. And I was just like, damn, all right, that's pretty cool. Like that felt very solid.
Yeah.
And so now that's a place that I get to like move around with. And that realization was around psychological masochism. When I had that epiphany about the psychological masochism and how I was employing my own level of masochism psychologically, because I don't like that shit physically. I'm not a masochist physically at all. Although I do like some tattoos, right? Like, which is a certain level of pain, but like psychologically though, I've put myself through the ringer a few fucking times.
Interesting.
I have chosen to do things with the consequences that came with the psychological masochism, honey. And that shit was eye-opening for me. And then I was also able to like comfort myself and love myself around it and give myself the aftercare that was required to maintain a healthy relationship to that. Because aftercare is really important in the BDSM community. It's important in any sort of like play dynamic when you're in that community, in that lifestyle community. And I feel like internally you need to give yourself your own level of aftercare with certain things that pop up in your life.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to dating myself first, because that's how I date myself first. That's an example of how I date myself first, right?
Yeah. And continue to date yourself first. I love it. I love this.
Yeah, you have hard conversations with yourself. You show up for yourself. You hold space for yourself when you're going through something, and then you comfort yourself afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, all much
Comfort and
necessary
celebrate, I think, are all important pieces of that.
all much necessary to the self-love journey. Most definitely. Ooh, that was like breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, definitely take a minute, take a breath. It's good. It's good to breathe.
Yes, breathe with us,
Yeah.
Take
It's good
that
to breathe it
moment.
in, ground it in, and yeah. I'm gonna take a sip. We're breathing.
We're breathing.
13 minutes, right?
Okay.
People attack you when you breathe. You get yourself.
We were hoping to
It's
have
holding
some
a space for ourselves and our audience. Thank
Exactly.
you.
We would love to field questions. Unfortunately, there's no questions up.
There's one viewer.
Okay. So if you have any questions around what we've been talking about, or just something non-related that you have a question about that you want to ask us, this would be a great time for that. Otherwise, we might just talk about what it is that we're looking for, men specifically, as women who date men.
Okay. I'm here for that.
That we feel like we would like to see more of, but don't get. For whatever social conditioning is happening out there, that men feel like they can't express themselves a certain way or whatever.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start that with you.
With me?
Yeah, because I don't just date men, so
This
it's
is
like
true.
I have to like just get my subset out.
It's like
The subset.
this is
what I'm
where
looking
we're
for here.
focused.
Yeah.
Okay. What am I looking for? That's a great question.
Like, what do you feel if you could ask directly, because this is a thing, right? Like, most of the time we want something, but we don't feel like we can ask for it directly. So if you feel like if you were in the most comfortable place where you could ask someone directly for what it is that you want, what would that question be?
I have no freaking clue.
Oh, really?
I have no freaking clue. I'm like in this headspace of like, this is where I'm at today at 31. I have had a realization that everything that I've looked for in the past is different than who I am today.
Totally.
And I
get that.
don't know exactly if all of the things that I've requested
Makes
are the
sense
things.
anymore.
Yeah. Like, I know that I want a family. I know that I want to be married. I know that I date men.
Those are all future things.
Right.
Right.
I want somebody to laugh with, to cuddle with, to cry with, to be there. But, like, what is it that I would want?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm still in this dating phase of exploring that because 31 looks different.
Yeah, true.
And I just don't know.
And how many years have you been dating?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would only say in actuality like 4.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I've spent from 15 to 26 off and on with the same person. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and so now from like 26 to 31 has been dating. I dated someone or had a relationship with someone in between there for 11 months. But outside of that, this is really the first time that I've been dating like ever. And it's only been like
just
4 years
to
of
really
it.
just date. Right?
Yeah.
I totally get that.
And I'm a relationship person, so I really love to just like, oh, I got you and you got me and this is great.
Right.
But even now, it's like, I am a relationship person, but are we going for that right now? I could see where that goes.
So then my question becomes, where do you get your physical touch attention?
My pillow.
Okay, that's not physical touch. That's just cuddling with your pillow.
Yes, I know. I
okay.
don't though.
Because you know they have cuddle parties. It's totally. It's
I did not
platonic.
know
It's
that.
like, you know what I mean. Like cuddle parties are platonic touch. First of all, it's not sexual in nature at all. And okay, I improvise, but I make it clear that's what I want eventually.
Yeah, I'm similar. I improvise and I know that I want a relationship. I know the goals that I have set.
Right.
I improvise until I get there. Yeah. I know what I like when I like it.
That's yeah.
And I know what type of time I'm willing to spend on what I like when I like it.
On finding that.
Yeah.
Right? Like how much time you're willing to put in until something bubbles up to the surface. I totally get that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm kind of the same way in terms of I just like to let things
Play out.
But I will also say that one of the reasons that, so for me, I have like a pleasure team in mind is because there's different buckets of attention that I require. And we talked about this before. I'm not looking for one person to fill all those buckets.
Yeah.
But I am very clear about personally, like I know the types of buckets that I need filled in order to feel fulfilled. And so it's not like I show up like, oh, you're going to fill this bucket. I'm more like I show up with the buckets that need to be filled. And then I have a conversation. We see kind of where this person is going to end up in regards to that. So it's like I'm coming with what I know about myself and what my needs are. And then I'm sort of seeing if that other person has, like what their needs are. Because they're making the same decision. And I think that's the other thing about this is that I'm not showing up to a situation and I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to fill this bucket of yours. Because I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and also you're the adult in your life. So it's up to you to make those decisions to see if I'm going to fill something for you or if there's, again, it's a window of compatibility, right?
Yes.
Because we should be feeding each other. But yeah, I definitely know when I show up to a situation, I can kind of, within a certain duration of time, I'll be like, oh, this is an ONS, or oh, this is a touch hunger situation. Like, I'm just gonna, get touched, and they're gonna get touched, and then we're gonna go on our separate ways. Or like, this could be a cuddle buddy relationship, right? Because I have like cuddle buddies that are different from, maybe something that's like more sensual or sexual, depending. So, but yeah, so going back to like getting your touch hunger fed, I think is really important, because I really find that I think it's really healthy for humans to get their touch hunger fed before making relationship decisions, I guess is what I'm saying. Because otherwise, I think sometimes people will jump into a relationship because they're also feeding off, like they're also hungry for physical affection. And that can also then end up sort of muddling the waters of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I've been on the cusp of dating a few people, but then when I got a little deeper into like their actual experiences, they hadn't dated in 4 or 5 years. They hadn't spent time with anybody, and I was like, oh, so you're not interested in me? You're just interested in somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. That's all I'm saying.
Not.
And it doesn't even mean that I'm adverse to fulfilling that somebody in that moment. But internally and psychologically and emotionally, I already know. I also, at the same time, know that, oh, this person is just looking for someone. They're not necessarily looking for me. So I may be filling a little gap for them, but I also know not to take it too seriously, because I am aware of where that person is. So when you say about meeting people where they are, there's a symbiotic nature to that. You've also got to make decisions about where that person is.
True,
and whether or not you're willing to give attention to that situation, even knowing it might be short-lived. So a lot of folks go into dating thinking they want this long-term situation. And I think for me, I go into it more like, oh, well, it could just be a week. It could be 2 dates. It could be 3 dates. And that's fine for me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I might not always be okay with that. I might not be okay with that when it comes to the person who might come into my life that is actually going to be like, I just had the cartoon image pop in my head with the hearts where they're like, "Booga," like that kind of response. Like, I might not be okay with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, for so far, like I have the open heart to have small experiences while I'm, may be on the cusp of something different. Okay, so I wanted to read this comment, but it
Can't
was
hardly see it really.
we got. Okay, wait. So I only want friends. What better way to get to know a person than to be friends?
I'm always down for a good friendship. I think that's important. And
Right.
To build a friendship before we start to building anything else is pretty important to me, because I need to like you, like as a person, like
right, as a human
first.
being. I'm always like that. I mean, that's a standard for me. Like, I need to like you as a human being before we can get into something that's longer term. I also feel like I just want to see this. So the issue about losing a relationship because you said one thing, we don't necessarily know what the other person was thinking, if it was just one thing or if it was a multitude of things. And so to take ownership for your feelings in the situation is not so much about what the other person did, but how you're feeling right now. Like, oh, okay, I'm feeling like I'm getting judged for what I want. And now I'm feeling a little insecure about that. And also the relationship is ending, and that's making me feel a kind of way. And so I'm not a big person about necessarily compartmentalization, but I do kind of like to get you into the root of something and really observe it. And so my comment would be more around the situation of, if you want to have a friendship before a longer term relationship, and you're looking for something that is like polyamory based, then you can just use this situation or this experience as a means to get clear about how to how to communicate that, oh, I'm looking for a polyamorous relationship and I'm currently interviewing for that. And I would like us to have a level of friendship that before that happens. But even with that, I will always advocate for, again, when you're dating, I think it's really important to have dates, to date people that you're looking to maybe have a longer term relationship with, and then also simultaneously be dating somebody that's managing the physical touch. Because those two things are not necessarily going to be the same person.
Very true.
Right?
Huh.
Like, get some of that physical touch stuff out of the way over here, and then as you're looking for somebody to go longer term with.
I like that idea.
Because it just alleviates the pressure. It's kind of like having friends, right? Like, you have friends where you're really like close and you're talking about all the deeper shit, and then you're having these like new acquaintances that you're not talking about all the deeper shit. You're just sort of learning each other, right? But you still need those friends in order to navigate the deeper shit that's happening in the present moment.
True.
So I don't really look at dating as dissimilar from having strong friendships in that sense. I think that you can have multiple lanes of access simultaneously while you're dating. But I think it's important to just sort of designate, right? It's sort of like, if you're running a company, you're delegating different things to different people because those individual people have different strengths. And so, you play to their strengths, not their weaknesses. Like, you play to their strengths while you're developing their weaknesses, because this is a business that we're talking about. But this is kind of similar with relationships that we all have, right? Like, we all have friends that have strengths that we know, and at the same time are trying to work on certain weaknesses or certain things that they maybe don't do well, that they actually are initiating change towards.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, there's really I don't think that dating should be dissimilar. I think the problem with dating is that folks try to pedestal dating as if it's got to be this,
grandiose,
singular,
singular.
like the high ticket thing or the high. I hear people talk about dating like it's like something so outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's not. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of your living experience. And so it can't be that far away.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like if you put dating on a pedestal, then you're also putting a bunch of expectations around it. You're also, and sometimes you're kind of burdening the other people that you're in communication with all your shit. Right?
That's such an interesting, like...
I'm like, I don't want to be burdened with your fucking perspective of dating if it's like convoluted and full of fucking social fucking constrictions and shit.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to contort and I don't want to be constricted. So, like, again, those are the things that I look at when I'm having a conversation with somebody or I'm chatting somebody up. I'm like, I'm looking at all these little things because I want to be free.
Free to be who I am.
I want to be free
alongside of
in these relationships.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to contort myself.
I like that. I don't think I've ever even noticed that dating seems pedestalistic.
Yeah.
It's like, you kind of like, there's such a time where you're kind of like, okay, so this is the space that I have for dating. And like, sometimes it doesn't necessarily need space. It just needs to, you need to be okay with doing it. Not so much holding this like grandiose space, like, this is...
And I think people are afraid to just jump in and like test some shit out.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you can say no. That's the missing piece. You can say no.
And it's also because I think people don't want to... I think overall, there's like a faction of folks who are like, I don't want to waste my time, folks.
Yes.
And then there's another faction of folks who are just like, I don't want to... I'm afraid to get my feet wet.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, but those two things are not... Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Everybody wants it right now, and they want it bigger, and they want it better, and they want you more beautiful, and they want your body to look better, and they want this and that and the other thing. Yes. And it's just like, that shit has nothing to do with human connection.
Nope.
at fucking all.
Not
It doesn't
even
have to
a bit.
do with human connection. It doesn't have to do with sexual chemistry. It doesn't have to do with sensuality. None of that other shit, that right now, bigger, better, more thing, doesn't have anything to do with actual human connection. I think that's why there's such a sort of weird place around dating these days. It's because of that. And then, you know, if you're not looking at... You're right.
Yes.
Well, I would say American culture loves immediate gratification because
Yes.
it turns us into consumers.
Yes.
And that consumerism and that marketing that drives consumerism has sort of started to eat away at our ability to remember what humanity and human connection and human experience is really all about. Yeah.
That's why it's like a... That's why it's such a grandiose thing in your mind. Is like, because if I have it, it's like, it's the biggest thing ever.
And that's the other thing too. You don't have dating.
You
don't have
social
a person,
media.
right? That's the thing. Like, one of the things I notice the most at this particular age in dating is like the level of possessiveness
that's
that
very
people
quick.
have about holding on to you, what they think of you, or their perception of you. Like, I deal with other people's perception of me often. Also just, you know, people's gaze, but I also understand that another person's perception of me really is just that. They're responsible for that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for my practice of living. I don't even try to perceive my own self, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
or have any judgments about it. I really just try to practice living every day. And that allows me to have some distance from other people's perceptions of who they think I am or how they think I'm behaving or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to have some distance between you and other people's perceptions of you.
Completely agreed.
Yeah.
What can you leave our audience off with as we come to this close?
I think that human beings overall, I don't care what you identify with or as or whatever, really should, not even should, but I just think it would be heartfelt and helpful to be a little more honest about where you are in life. You know, stop trying to like create a facade or perform a role and really just speak from where you actually are and what makes you happy and where you can find more joy, especially in dating. I think the more honest that you are, the better experiences that you're ultimately going to have, not only for you, but the other human being that you're connecting with. Because people are not objects for you to carry around in your fucking pocket.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is our closeout for this evening.
Oh, that's a really good point.
What was that?
So our last little conversation tidbit is, I don't want a relationship. She or he put a title to it, and now they're disinterested. Right. Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, again, I think there's a lot more polyamory, sort of non-monogamous people out here, and we're sort of, as a culture and as a society, really looking into other ways of practicing relationships because we are so fed up with how the labels of past relationships have really not given us what we wanted or needed or felt. And so I do find, even though I find that there's a ability to renegotiate our relationship to relationships and like those various means, I also feel like, you know, you do have to have a conversation and have good communication about what you're looking for, right? Yeah, I also agree. Like, I am not a big fan of monogamy, so I think forced monogamy is repression or equals oppression to some degree. Yes, I think it's very important for people to take a look at how the dynamics of colonialism, slavery, and oppression end up in the micro of their relationship dynamics, absolutely. I think everybody should be doing that work, actually. All humans should be doing that work because we have all been affected by those colonialism, slavery, and oppression. So, and white supremacy, which is sort of running alongside that constantly.
Yes.
No matter where you are on the globe, really, because yeah, I think as human society, we all need to start looking at how that macro has seeped into our micro dynamics of relationships. And I think that's actually what a lot of us are entangling right now. And that's why people are so much like, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids, I don't want to do any of these social things that you've told me that I have to fucking do, or that I should be doing, or that's the right way to live, or whatever. When in reality, you know, human beings are like the stars of the earth. There's many of us, and we can all burn the way that we want to burn, you know, as brightly or as black mattery as we want to. So very nice. Okay, are we wrapping up? Do you want me to read this last question? Okay, so the last is more of a comment. It's around the polyamorous community and being pursued as if you're in the polyamorous community, even though that's not what you really want. So that's good that you're taking a moment of celibacy. I think that's always a good decision to like go back internally and figure out how you're feeling and what you really want and make it clear. So I just want to say this: polyamory, polygamy, monogamy, and non-monogamy are all a spectrum of relationships that folks can tap into. They're not necessarily exclusive from each other, but they don't necessarily mirror each other. So there can be people that are polyamorous, but also practice a level of monogamy. Just like polygamy is a little bit different because that's a little bit, there's like a legality, I think, to polygamy that is different from being polyamorous. And is also different than being like non-monogamous versus being monogamous. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to have some terminology. I don't think terminology is the end-all be-all, but I think it's important to learn the terminology. My favorite place to look up terminology is usually I think it's called Stonewall. Is it stonewall.org? They've got a lot of different terminology and definitions that are currently being used in the spectrum of, you know, identification and relationship identity and gender identity and all of those things. So there's some good resources that are on the internet right now for that. But that's another good conversation to have, is just like how all of these things interplay. But at the end of the day, you just really need to know what you're comfortable with and what are you looking for right now. So
Yes.
yeah.
Hold space for yourself. Allow yourself time to breathe, grieve, and grow.
Yeah, I like that.
And protect your magic at all costs. So
Absolutely.
it has been great chatting with you all today. We are coming to a close.
Thank
We will
you.
see you on the next episode of Commonwealth Podcast.
Bye.
Bye.